Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Briareos Kerensky here to bring you the review of Caladrius, Moss' latest vertical shoot-em-up for the Xbox 360. Moss are not new to the genre, having developed Raiden 3 on the PS2 and Raiden 4 on the X360. If you have played one of the two, you'll be able to draw comparisons between them and Caladrius almost immediately, starting from the graphical presentation. The overall style is very dark, colors are desaturated and various elements tend to blend together. It's not hard to separate projectiles, enemies and the player's ship from the background, but everything could have used more brighter colors and a wider palette. Backgrounds are particularly bland, often abusing the same map patterns and feeling very uninspired. Their design shows hints of good ideas, combining level structure with enemy placement and design, but such hints are too few and far between. Not only the graphics of the levels suffer due to this, but their structure as well, resulting in mediocre stages that hardly leave any mark. Story illustrations are equally dull, and way too few have been penned by, or received the contribution of, Suzuhito Yasuda, the character designer, leaving a sour taste after finishing story mode. Characters themselves are not bad, though, very strangely, many voices don't fit their faces, even with few famous VAs on duty.
Hey, Iris と戦うの？教会のシスターが何の用かしら。お祈りならいらないのだけど。私は教会の司祭様の使いで王都に向かっています。そこを通していただけませんか？
Caladrius has a very strong story element. Stages and bosses are introduced and completed with relatively lengthy dialogues, which can be skipped or turned off altogether before starting the game. During stages there are no dialogues, which is a good thing, but leaving them on really breaks the flow of a stage. The game features a gallery of illustrations and voices, and unfortunately you have to keep dialogues on if you are aiming for a 100% completion rate. The music is competent enough, relying on sorta metal tracks. It's the kind of metal that abuses drums, guitars and choirs. Not exactly my favorite kind of metal, but it's a good companion to the action. Sound effects are standard, though the game lacks audio cues for gain bombs and other mechanic-related events, forcing players to rely on the not-so-clear graphics. Caladrius offers its own peculiar game mechanics. Each ship is armed with a standard fire mode and 3 secondary fire modes, called element shooters. Each shooter has its own energy reserve, which recharges when not in use, or by collecting recharge crystals scattered around levels, hidden until shot few times. If this sounds a lot like Raiden, well, Soul Towers are back in Caladrius as well. Dead enemies drop gold tokens, and with enough gold tokens, an Ether chip is awarded. Ether chips are used between stages to power up element shooters. By killing enemies with the element shooters, the raid counter will go up, giving more value to the collected gold tokens. Some enemies also drop pink crystal shards, and with 9 of them, a book will appear on screen, granting an extra life. The 3 ships offer different standard fire spread, movement speed and element shooters, though you can expect a barrier from enemy projectiles, an homing attack, and a strong forward-firing weapon, or a mix of them. K, with the blue ship, has a homing attack, a fixed attack, and a short-range whip that works as offense and defense. Maria, with the yellow ship, a homing attack, option like satellites, and a full barrier. all ships feel sluggish at first, and while no one is low for the pace of the game, it does contribute to give Caladrius a rather bad first impression. Some of these bad vibes dissipate as more of the game is discovered, but other flaws become apparent as well. The idea behind the element shooters is sound, but there isn't enough difference between the three starting ships and their weapons. Alex's ship is the most limited and the more interesting to play with, but due to how the system works, her strong yet limited attacks put her at a disadvantage compared to the others. Bosses lack creativity and feel captive of the mundane stage design, acting like immobile giant statues rather than according to their design. The first and second bosses are particularly guilty of this, completely ignoring their design potential and relying on stationary battles. Their attack patterns aren't particularly interesting or creative as well. The later bosses do provide good patterns to evade, but their design doesn't deviate too much from what's seen before. It's like Moss had great plans for Caladrius, but those plans fell very far from the original ideas in almost every aspect, and, well, you probably have noticed the cutting breaks. Destroy a boss section fast enough, or have a life last long enough, and the character's clothes will be torn to shreds. Complete a stage without losing a life, and an extra illustration will be your reward. Has the Japanese video game industry declared war on clothes? Other than the visual appeal, the cutting breaks do not add anything, no matter how well they are done, and I would have preferred that Moss spent more time on developing the actual game rather than coming up with this. Not that the game lacks content. Story mode aside, there are boss rush and score attack modes, and beaten stages can be tackled individually for practice. Meet certain requirements, which I think is once seen the standard 5 stages, and a 6th secret stage will be unlocked, along with a new boss. Completing story mode with all 3 characters will unlock a 4th ship with its very peculiar attacks, and after that you'll be able to mix and match element shooters on all ships. It's painful that these elements, these good elements, are relegated to secrets. There is no doubt that Moss have the skills, they just didn't pour enough attention to the whole game. My suggestion is to go for Caladrius only if you are really desperate for shoot-em-ups. The X360 is full of excellent vertical and horizontal shooters. Death Smiles, Akai Katana, various Dodonpachi, Esp Galuda 2, Ginga Force, Raiden 4. Skip Caladrius if you still have to get one of those. If you do, wait for better games. Briareos Kerensky, over and out.
アイラ